Hello. Hello and welcome to this webinar today, looking at our Idwal ID service and how standardised inspections and data can assist with maintaining and improving the condition of your vessels. Great to have my Idwal colleagues alongside me here today, and thank you to everyone who is joining us online from around the world. As most of you know, Idwal is a ship inspection technology and data business. I'm Sue Henney, Head of Marketing at Idwal, and will be the host for this session. Today, we're really excited to show you a live demo of Idwal ID, and we'll talk with our panelists about the power of data from standardised inspections. Towards the end, we'll hopefully have time to take some questions submitted by you. Please use the Q&A button, which is at the bottom of the screen, and post your questions there. Our panel will be able to see them and will cover as many as possible. Those we don't get covered in the Q&A, we will produce a document afterwards and send it out to you in the next week or two. Okay, so I'm going to start by asking my colleagues to introduce themselves briefly. So first of all, over to you, George.
Thank you very much, Sue, and thanks for arranging this webinar today. So I see there's a fair few people in the room, if you like, who I've spoken to before and who I know through the industry, but very pleased to meet those of you who I haven't met before. So just a little bit of background about myself. I've been with Idwal for 2 years now. Prior to that, well, I started out my career as a sale and purchase and new building broker. I did that for 10 years in the UK and then Singapore. I then moved to the Middle East, where I joined a ship owner and took over not just commercial, but also operational responsibility for a fleet of ships. After that, I went to Hong Kong, where I was with a third-party ship manager, the largest ship manager in the world, as group commercial director. And that's where I really got to understand about the concept of scale and third-party management and the need for data. After returning to the UK with my family in a couple of years ago now, I joined Idwal. And the reason I joined to Idwal is because I could see the power of the structured data set that we have, the ability for us to invest in technology, whether that be from the software development side or from the data side, and to use that with structured data, a standardized approach to really give actionable insights on vessel technical performance. And I look forward to discussing that with everybody today. Back to you, Sue.
Okay, great. Thank you, George. And coming to you next, Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Llewellyn. I'm head of product at Idwal. I've been at Idwal and in the maritime industry for just over 5 years, but experience in product and software development for over 20 years. My role at Idwal is to align the needs of customers and the business in general and work closely with the software development team to realize that and build the right solution for everyone. And a big part of that over the last couple of years has been building the Idwal ID platform.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Tom.
Thanks, Sue. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, based on where you are in the world. My name is Thom Herbert, and I'm a key account manager here at Idwal. As a bit of background, I'm an ex-seafarer by trade, working on the deck side, primarily on oil and gas tankers, as well as briefly cruise vessels before coming ashore approximately 5 years ago to join Idwal. During my time at Idwal, I've worked within the technical department to help develop our inspection report, the Idwal Grade, as well as the various other products we offer to the market, including Idwal ID. Approximately 1 year ago, I relocated to Singapore to help open and set up our Idwal Asia HQ, which is based here, and this has allowed me to work very closely with a number of our key Idwal ID partners, and it's great to be here today.
Great, thanks, Tom, and thanks for joining us at this late time in the day for you in Singapore, and for any of our other guests that are joining us either early in the morning or late at night in your time zones. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with George giving us that live demo that we talked about. George, before you do that, maybe could you just give a little bit of background on Idwal itself as a business, and maybe a little bit of insight into why you thought Idwal ID was needed in the market.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sue. And very pleased to have Tom and Amanda, the brains behind a lot of the operation, on the call with me here. So I get the luxury of demonstrating what we've got. They went through all the work to build it and to do the inspection reports, etc., in the background. So now's my chance to explain to people what we're up to. Okay, so hopefully if I share my screen now, can you see the slide deck, Sue? Good. Okay, great. So first of all, just to give a bit of brief background about Idwal, the company was actually established in 2011, and we were predominantly doing inspections on behalf of financiers at that point, and a little bit of sale and purchase inspections, pre-purchase inspections. But it was in 2017, when the company rebranded to Idwal Marine, that we really start to up the ante. We brought in a data team and a CTO who effectively decided or changed the thought of the company to take structured data based on standardized checklist questionnaires. And because of that, in 2019, we had a sufficient data set and had done sufficient modeling that we were able to launch the Idwal Grade. Alongside the launch of the Idwal Grade came the launch of the pre-sale concept in the sale and purchase market, which was effectively where we do an impartial inspection on behalf of a seller, and then they are able to then use that report, sell that report on to potential buyers via the Idwal platform for them to make a decision as to whether they purchase the ship. So what you saw from sort of 2019 through to 2023 was our growth predominantly in the sale and purchase sector. During this time we were preparing for sale and purchase, and during this time we have been preparing for the launch of Idwal ID, working with our partners who were doing condition monitoring to how we could change it to condition improvement. Tom mentioned the establishment of the Singapore office in 2023, and in January 24, we launched Idwal ID officially, having been through a collaboration period with a number of partners. So a little bit more just about Idwal. We are seen and known to be this technical company who do ship inspections, which is absolutely the end product of what we do. But very important to mention is that that is the tip of the iceberg. A huge amount of what we invest our time and money into is data and technology. We have PhDs in data science. We're doing AI and machine learning, modeling, supervised machine learning in the background. Amanda, as she said, leads our product team. And our product team work with our software developers who are all in-house developing the platforms which we deliver our solutions on. We are also a highly collaborative company. I'll talk about some of the use cases and how we develop those in conjunction with our partners during this webinar. But it's very important to explain that it's not one size fits all. We understand that we have to partner with our clients to make sure that we continue to evolve and offer solutions. And Idwal ID is the culmination of a lot of partnerships so far. So just a few more stats about Idwal. In 2023, of all of the ships sold, we inspected more than 45% of them for sale and purchase. So since 2019, when we introduced the Idwal Grade, we have done more than, or inspected and graded more than 15% of the global fleet. So this webinar is about data. So please understand that we have a phenomenal data set. That's over 10 million data points we have structured and cataloged in our data warehouse. We are delivering more than 15 inspection reports every working day. We have 5 global offices around the world, more than 100 countries in which we can inspect ships. And since 2019, we have inspected 12,000 unique IMO numbers, i.e. more than 15% of the 60,000 ships in the world. Just one point as well, which is highly relevant, is that we are working on supervised machine learning on predictive grades of ships as well, where we have not been on board them. So this is something that is happening in the background. So now I'm just going to flip and talk specifically about Idwal ID. And to do that, I just want to set the scene of how Idwal ID works in 5 simple steps. We will carry out regular inspections of the ship. So the client partner will request for us to inspect their ships on a regular basis. That could be once a year, could be once every 6 months, depends on asset condition as an outcome of the inspection. We then take the burden in terms of allocating the surveyor. Tom will be talking about how we manage our surveyor network later on. The inspection takes place on a cutting edge sort of industry leading checklist. We do more impartial third-party inspections than anyone else, so we are absolutely on top of industry regulation changes, requirements, etc. And because we work with so many partners, we're able to take from them what they require from the inspections. So we can both bespoke the checklist in line with customer requirements, and when we do that, we take into account if some of the customer questions would benefit our standard checklist, and we can add them in as required. After the inspection has taken place on that checklist, a critical step within Idwal and something unique to the company is that the data, inspection material, the photos, etc., are all received by the technical team. And Tom will talk in more detail about this, but this is the point at which we standardize and make sure that our inspections are on an apples with apples basis. The view of an Indonesian seafarer versus perhaps a Danish seafarer on the quality of gym equipment on a rating scale may be very different. That is why we have a standardized approach in our technical team where we iron out that subjectivity and make our inspections as objective as we can. The final step is that the reports are issued, but they are issued onto the Idwal ID platform, which allows an impartial bird's eye view of a fleet, so allowing a client to understand where they can improve their fleet. It allows the closeout of defects on an efficient basis, and I'll be able to demonstrate that. And it allows the client to demonstrate technical performance either internally, so to view which fleets are performing better or worse, and externally. So that could be to shareholders, it could be to charterers, to financiers, etc., to be able to demonstrate all of the hard work going on to the ship management. Quickly, before I demonstrate the platform itself, just a little bit about where we are today. We have more than 25 companies using Idwal ID and over 1,000 vessels in the platform today doing regular condition improvement inspections with Idwal. Just a few comments that we have received from our partners. From Cobblefret, they've said that it will help them know where they need to invest better and improve their commercial image. FedNav advised that it will help protect their license to operate and to identify opportunities for improvement in their fleet. And Tufton see it that Idwal ID takes a lot of the burden for them. They don't have to focus on arranging the inspections, etc. They just give it to us, and we take it on. And then from that, they get impartial oversight and the ability to identify and rectify defects quickly and efficiently. So this is what some of our partners are saying about the platform. Now, what I would like to do is to give you a quick demonstration of how it actually works. So now I'm in my Google Chrome browser and I'm in the platform. Okay, this is a live demonstration. If a partner has a list of IMO numbers, they give us those IMO numbers and it will automatically populate for them. For the purposes of this demonstration, we are using fake IMO numbers and vessel names. So imagine, if you will, that this would be a fleet of ships, or this is a fleet of ships, this might be a fleet of your ships. It will say when the next inspection is due, how long since it was last done, the status of the inspection. It will give all details as required on technical manager, etc. It's also possible to customize this, so you can add, for example, charterer name or vessel manager name, etc. All of that is possible, and then you can sort and slice and dice with that data. At the most simple level, this allows you to go through to the report. So you can click onto the grade, and it will allow you to look at the grading of that ship to see where the ship is performing well or not so well. Where you want to look at the photos, you can simply click on the photo icon and it will take you through all of the photos. So we take the burden of cataloging all of those photos. I want to see hull condition. I want to see galley and accommodation. It's all cataloged by us in Idwal, easy for you to use. It's also possible to see inspection history. So if a ship has been inspected previously, achieved a grade of 93 currently, it has gone up 2 from when it achieved a grade of 91. Again, you can click and you can see the inspection history of that asset and get into the historic inspection reports. So this is a very streamlined, easy way to manage your inspections. Where the data starts coming to its own, and now we're sort of moving away from individual ships and we're going to the bird's eye view of the fleet, is when we click on this scatter graph, the grading graph. Along the x-axis, we have the age of the ship, and up the y-axis, we have the grade of the ship. What you will see in these gray dots, which represent 15% or more of the world fleet, as ships get older, the average grade is declining. This is what we would expect, degradation of assets as the more they trade and the closer they get to the end of their life cycle. The blue dots represent the client's inspections. If they hover over those, they can see the data and see the information. It is not possible to get the data hovering over a gray dot because that is something confidential to the other clients for whom we have inspected their ships. It is also possible to filter all of this data to get an apples with apples comparison. So now, for example, I am focusing on bulk carriers, and then I can add additional filters. So I can focus on geared bulk carriers, taking out everything bar very old Panamaxes nowadays. So if we apply that, we are now in a situation where this is geared only bulk carriers. It's also possible to focus within a specific age range. So now we are focusing on 10 to 15-year-old geared bulk carriers. And we are able to see that this fleet is underperforming the average of all Idwal inspected 10 to 15-year-old bulk carriers. So I'm sure hopefully what people can see is we've taken this from just the inspection to a data-led approach. If one wants to interrogate that data further, they can start to look at the subgrade. And this is now telling you why there is this deviance below 70 for the fleet average and around 73. So it's about 68 versus 73 from the benchmark average. And you can see where the vessels are underperforming. So pollution control is the area of highest concern. Mooring decks are 17.41% below industry average, etc. I'm going very fast through this, but of course, if anyone would like to understand more about this, we'd be very pleased to entertain any questions or to have an offline discussion about it. There's a lot more filtering capability in the platform. Finally, where this really manifests is when we take a view on the defects. And what I am doing now is I'm showing you how we can do defect management and review the defects. So here we have the fleet of ships. We can expand this to say, okay, I want to see all 50 ships in one place, okay? And you can see the priority of those defects, whether they are high, medium, or low. You can also see whether they are closed, in progress, rectified, or open. This is something we developed particularly in partnership with CMA and Golden Ocean, where they wanted a defect management solution, which we developed. And just to show you how that manifests itself is if we focus on, for example, the Italy's defects, we can come down and we can see all of those defects for the Italy. And we see that the inspected ballast tank was found to be generally free of significant rust, etc. So, but there were rust on the crossbars. So now we can see how that actually looks. But most importantly, we can go in and we can actually see the information on that defect, and it's possible to rectify it. So an example we've put in here is that the defects are fixed, the resolution date, the cost, whether it was OPEX, CAPEX, and the defect status. There is also a timeline log showing which people have changed that status, etc. And the supporting images have been uploaded to show that it has been dealt with here. If I just leave this, very important to explain is the ability to share defects. So it is also possible to focus only on open defects and to click share defects. This allows the client to send them to the vessel itself or the vessel manager or superintendent, or if using a third-party manager, to send it to a third-party manager, who will then be able to go in and rectify those defects. So this is being used as a KPI metric, if you like, by owners to manage the manager at times. So this is how we can do the defect closeout functionality. One other thing that I'd just like to explain is if we take all defects, we come here, we can just reset the table. And this is lending more to the ability to use data in the future. Because we have aggregated all of the defects together, we can do things like look at any defect with the word windlass in. So if we type this, this will now focus down on everything that has the word windlass in it. So we can see that the Bahamas windlass brakes had only minimal thickness remaining. If we click on the image, we can see that the surveyor has pointed. Where we are looking to take this is the fact that AI will look at the defects in the background and will be able to help with preventative maintenance. A similar asset, which is 1 year older, tends to have this commonality of defects. Let's say a Hyundai Mipo built MR 2012. These are the defects. So we can assume that a 2013 ship may experience similar defects next year, etc. It also will allow us to advise clients on which areas they are seeing commonality in issues, which might highlight to concerns within their systemic concerns within their safety management system, etc. And that is done by taking catalog data, which is something we have focused on. Everything is structured and cataloged within our data warehouse. It's been a rapid run through of the platform there, Sue, but hopefully there will be some questions on it, and I'll pass back to you at this stage.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, George. And hope that gives everybody a brief overview as to how powerful the platform is. As George mentioned, please do remember if you've got any questions. I can see a couple in already. If you want to add a question, if you click the Q&A button at the bottom, I think you can ask them anonymously if you want to as well. So please do go ahead, feel free to ask some questions there. Just wanted to touch a little bit with you, Amanda, on George mentioned some of the partners that we worked with during the initial development and launch of Idwal ID. And I just wondered if you could elaborate on that a little bit, maybe kind of give us a little bit more insight on how that customer feedback has helped to shape the platform.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, customer feedback has been absolutely essential from the very start of developing ID. In fact, even before we began to develop the ID platform, we worked closely with some key customers, our partners, as George has described them. And the point of that was to properly better understand the needs and the challenges they face. So we generally encourage an open dialogue, want to hear about any problems any clients have or any suggestions that they may bring to the table. So to do this, we gather feedback in several ways, most simply through surveys or questionnaires, but we have dedicated feedback calls, onboarding calls with various clients, and we've started to host roundtable events as well, like the one we hosted in Singapore earlier in the year. So every bit of feedback we've received is carefully evaluated, reviewed, prioritized, solutions that offer multiple customers value naturally move to the top of the list. I think George also mentioned we have an in-house development team at Idwal, so that allows us to respond quickly, be iterative, and implement changes efficiently. One of the best examples of this, I think, has been the defect rectification flow that George has just demonstrated. So we had a client with large fleets and external technical management who needed to get a better sort of grip on defect resolution, tracking and reviewing and so on. So we built the flow that George has demonstrated that allows you to share defect details, following inspections, and track resolution progress and review evidence. So
yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, and then coming to you, Tom. Obviously, George talked earlier about standardized inspections and how important that is, and and we've also talked around kind of customer feedback. I just wondered from an inspection point of view, How does that work in terms of working with customers? Is it a standardised procedure, or is there also a little bit of customer shaping there as well?
It's an excellent question, Sue. Thank you. So I think to start off, I'll just briefly summarise what an Idwal inspection covers. So an Idwal inspection generates an objective assessment of both the physical condition of the vessel, so areas such as the hull, the open decks, cargo areas, so on and so forth, as well as areas such as the safety management system, the classification and certification, as well as the planned maintenance system. So we're not using a simple Word document to complete our reports. Instead, we use a smart PDF format. This has been developed in-house by our product and technical teams, and each question has coding that allows it to be viewed as a data point, with over 500 data points gathered in every inspection. So at its core, this is ultimately standardized, and it is this standardization that allows for the benchmarking capabilities of our dataset. However, customer interaction is vital, and we strive to ensure the focus points for each of our ID partners are exceeded in every inspection. To do this, we have a constant open dialogue, and we also have the ability to create a customer-specific requirement scope, which allows the incorporation of additional focus points into the inspection framework. So for example, one partner may have a clear focus on SMS implementation and adherence, while another may have an increased interest in crew welfare. So it's this combination of the data-driven approach, as well as the constant open dialogue between us and our Idwal ID partners, that has allowed the platform to grow to what we see today.
Okay, great. And I see a question that's coming in actually, which I might as well just ask you now, which is around how long does a typical inspection take, and how quickly can people expect to receive the results of that inspection?
Yeah, it's a good question. So on average, our inspections take between 8 to 12 hours on board. And it's important to really reiterate here that the Idwal team, as well as our surveyors, liaise with the vessel and our partners to ensure that there's no disruption towards the vessel operations, the cargo operations, or the crew hours of work and rest. Ultimately, that's paramount to us. We don't look to be a burden or a hindrance while on board. We look to work with the vessel to meet our inspection. In terms of delivery times, on average, it's 5 working days. However, we have the capacity and the flexibility, should there be faster turnaround requirements required, to work with our partners to meet those as and when needed. Okay,
great, thank you. And then sticking with...
Sorry, Sue, I'll just jump on top of something Tom talked about there, because one of the things, because it's a great question that's come in this one, it's really interesting, because quite a lot of our conversations start with clients saying, oh yeah, but we have our checklist here, we have our requirements that we need you to do. So we say, okay, well let's have a look at them. We'll do a gap analysis, and we have a team dedicated on just purely focusing on the checklist. So they will produce a gap analysis between the two, between, let's say, the Idwal standard inspection and then the client-specific requirements, as we call them. What we tend to find actually is that our checklist covers the vast majority of those. Occasionally, there will be a very bespoke question in there, which then we add in below as a client-specific requirement. But the beauty of what Idwal have done, and this is one of the key reasons for me joining the company, is we've bought a standard, we've bought a structured checklist, which we can then apply, and to that we can give a grading system. If we just say to everybody, okay, well, just fill out your checklist as you want it, then we can't compare, you can't benchmark, you can't trend, you can't do all of those things. So we offer this fantastic sort of best of both worlds kind of scenario, where the client gets all of their requirements ticked off, yes, but then they also get a data set behind it, which we have structured, we have standardized, and they can benchmark against industry without sharing any data with anyone else. And that's the beauty of it. They get that just to see themselves. So yeah, just thought I'd add that on top.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, George. Just coming back to you, Tom. I know that one of the main questions that we often get asked is around the surveyors, the quality of the surveyors we have around the world. So could you just talk a little bit about how Idwal ensures the consistency and the objectivity of the inspections kind of, across that extensive surveyor network?
Absolutely, yeah, and it is a really important point because it's ultimately one of the foundations of the data that George has run through. So to cover this, it's ultimately a combination of 2 points. The first being how our surveyors are managed, and the second being how the inspection reports are generated. So starting with our surveyors, so we have our own in-house surveyor management department, which forms part of the technical team and is run by our head of surveyor management. Idwal has a global coverage of surveyors. So to put this into context, there are approximately 2,800 ports worldwide, and we have at least one surveyor based within inspection distance of 84% of these ports. So what does it take to become, or how do you become an Idwal surveyor? So we have a very strict and regimented and standardized application process for any individual who wants to join our network, part of which includes an assessment, which has been made and is maintained in-house under a specific ILM. To date, this has a pass rate of 52%, which I hope gives some insight that it's not a simple box ticking exercise. We're always looking for the best possible individuals to work with as we continue to grow. Once a surveyor is onboarded and successful onto our network, they come on board to our continuous assessment and training system, where they receive objective and constructive feedback for every inspection they conduct. The aim of this is to help promote their continuous professional development. We also have the capacity to score our surveyors for every inspection they do. So we look at a number of factors, such as the quality of photographs, the level of detail in the report, as well as the level of technical accuracy throughout the report, and score it accordingly, which again is a completely separate, in-house developed and standardized process. It is this system that allows us to develop an objective metric on surveyor performance. The second side of this coin is the internal review of each report by the technical team. So the Idwal technical team is comprised solely of ex-seafarers who have over 250 years of combined experience within the maritime industry. As well as leading the development and maintenance of our core products, the technical team is also responsible for the internal review, including the generation of the Idwal grade of every report we deliver to the market. This is a review of all the data provided by our surveyor from the physical inspection, including the completed smart PDF checklist, as well as all required photographs and documents. And it's ultimately a combination of both of these points, the surveyors as well as the Idwal technical team, that helps ensure consistency and objectivity across all of our inspections.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Tom. And I'd just like to maybe point out that I know the technical team is relatively young, so there's quite a lot of you that make up those 250 years. So young and experienced, kind of recently come ashore, a lot of people, I guess. But yeah, the 250 years are not made up of 3 people. Okay, so I think coming to you now, George, you talked about the number of vessels that we have on the Idwal ID platform. So you said since launch in January, we've now got around 1,000 vessels on there. So we just wondered from your perspective, kind of how people are using the platform. Where are you seeing most trends? Are there any surprises from what you maybe envisaged before the launch and how it looks now?
Yeah, thanks very much, Sue. There's been predominantly pleasant, a couple of unpleasant surprises, but we'll focus on the pleasant surprises if you like. I like to be honest. So effectively, I think the thing that's really shone out is 2 aspects. One is the workflow management side. Actually, a lot of people had convoluted OneDrive filing structures and Excel documents where they were looking after all of their inspections, and sort of they'd ask us to do it, and then they'd manually be putting in the data into their own database within Excel, if you like. And that is really where Amanda put in all of that initial work before we launched ID to say, okay, well, what are you doing with the inspection reports to our partners, and then what would help you? So as an example, one of our partners was manually entering in the grade and the subgrade of each of the ships that we inspected for him, and then with that he was using conditional formatting to see how those ships, where they had poor performance, etc. obviously we could offer that contrasted with the whole background data set of 15% of the world fleet. So we built that for him, for example. Once we did that, others started saying, actually, this is really useful. I can see where I'm underachieving and where I'm overachieving, maybe where I want to deploy more of my OpEx or not, etc. So it's sort of that overall workflow management has been a really strong point. And then the other thing which has been amazing is the defect management side of things. So we have conversations with partners about building APIs so that it can go straight into their planned maintenance system, for example. But we're also seeing others saying, actually, we don't want it within our planned maintenance system. We want this in a separate place, either because they're using third-party managers or they just want to have a different view, an impartial view of their fleet from the Idwal side, so not sitting within their planned maintenance system. So it's the ability for us to either push it to them or for them to be able to view it within the platform. And that's been something that's really sort of instigated a lot of discussion and has been really positive, because at the end of the day, what we're looking to do is to make things more streamlined, more efficient, and more optimized. And that's sort of been the main focus here. And partners have said, okay, look, this is how we're doing it now. Can you help us? So I guess the bit that's important to stress is that the more we focus on this, the more we build this for one partner, the more it benefits another partner. And a lot of our conversations are sort of around, if you come and do this with us, you get to see what other people want. And we're bringing this standardization, bringing this approach, which has been very, very positive.
Yeah. Okay, great. I guess that customer feedback, that continual process with customers is really essential to its growth, the development of it. So thank you for that.
I have learned so much over the last couple of years in terms of, the language Amanda talks is starting to make some sort of sense to me nowadays, to be honest with you. But it's the beauty of what we do at Idwal is that we don't just do my traditional approach, which is, shipping is shipping. And we actually say, well, actually, how can we streamline this? How can we make it more efficient? And we have a customer success team we've just brought in, sort of, talking to our customers about, well, what more do you need? How can we help you? Whereas traditionally it was, okay, well, every ship is individual and blah, blah, blah. Whereas now we're a much more streamlined focus, which is great.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Coming to you, Amanda, someone's actually put in a question. It's around confidentiality of fleet data on the platform. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about what measures are in place around that to ensure that confidentiality.
Yeah, I mean, I think when George demonstrated the benchmarking earlier, you can see the blue dots that were shown, which would be your data. Full information is available about those, but any of the background information is completely anonymized. So everything you see on the graph represents real inspections, real grades, but there's no way you can sort of click or drill down or interrogate the data point to find out any specific details about the vessel or the inspection. We've got other safeguards in place too to protect commercially sensitive information. So we sort of ring fence filters at a certain level. You can't, with the background selection, you can't get down to below about 20 vessels. So, otherwise it starts to give away which ship and which inspection. Things become recognizable. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, generally, I'm not an expert in this area, but generally as a company, our infrastructure has robust sort of data and cybersecurity policies in place as well.
Excellent, thank you. And just still, while we're chatting, we've obviously talked a lot about this being an iterative service, so something that's constantly evolving. Can you possibly give us a bit of a sneak peek into what's coming next for Idwal ID?
I can, yeah. So in development right now and set to launch at the end of 2024 is our new ID PSC module. So one phrase or expression that I heard loud and clear when talking to customers this year is platform fatigue. So that's describing the frustration of having to jump between multiple different platforms to get the information they need to do the job. So things like having to log into, say, PSC source website of choice, look up data on a per ship basis, manually copy that data into maybe a spreadsheet and then maybe into another system and share with someone else. So that sort of thing. And no one's got time for that. So in response to that, we're integrating PSC metrics directly into the ID platform, which means our customers will soon be able to see complete list of inspections, detentions, deficiencies, and we're augmenting that with vessel and fleet level PSC ratios all in the same place.
Brilliant.
And lots more to come after that.
Yeah. I'll say exciting for George, because I'm sure George finds it particularly exciting.
It takes me back to a past life of convoluted Excel spreadsheets, manually inputting every single port state control inspection, removing this one, adding that one, etc. It's just about, it's going to be very, very helpful for clients to be able to select a group of ships, see the performance over a period of, let's say, 3 years or 12 months, all flexible. That can all be sliced and diced. And I think one of the really important things as well is it will take into account the risk profile under the MOUs. So it will warn clients if ships are coming up for or are in the inspection window under Paris or Tokyo MOU, etc. Right. So again, it's about, there's nothing to do with inspections. It's nothing to do with us going on board the ship. It's to do with us talking to our partners. What data set helps you? What are your workflows in the background, guys? Yeah. And them saying, oh, this, we do quite a bit of this and we do a bit of that, and could you help us? And yeah, I mean, we've got the data, we've got the ability to build the platform. We can, and so that will be launching, a soft launch before the end of the year, and we're looking forward to getting that rolled out.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we've got a few questions in, a bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, we've got the technical side and we've got the kind of data platform side. I think first of all, if I come to you, Tom, someone has asked, can you explain more about the ESG assessment included in the inspection? So I guess if you could just briefly cover that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a great question. It's something that I could spend a long time talking about, but for the sake of brevity, our inspection is designed, so I incorporated into our inspection are a number of questions that allow us to kind of create a brief but fully objective assessment of both the E, S, and G onboarded vessel at that time. We look to try and portray that within our reports and also share that with our partners at a unique level. And moving forward, we've been gathering the data specifically for quite some time now. We'll look to try and work with that and work with our partners to make that, as kind of Amanda and George have both said, listen to what they need, what they want, and share that data moving forward.
Okay. And maybe sticking with you, Tom, how does the benchmarking feature work, and how extensive is the data set we're comparing from? I think we covered that a little bit before, but if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the extensiveness of the data set. So as George briefly explained during his kind of like opening presentation, we've inspected approximately 15% of the world fleet, and that comprises of over 12,000 unique vessel inspections are in there. So there is a substantial data set for us to kind of compare there. In terms of benchmarking, at its simplest level, we generated the Idwal grade. That is a numerical value that allows us to assign a value to a relative vessel. We can then start to use the data in the background to break it down into vessel type, age, class, flag, manager. The list really is endless. There is millions of data points to allow us to interrogate further. But having this grade and this standardized data is what ultimately allows us to create the benchmarking capabilities.
Okay, thank you. And then we have, how often should we have our vessels inspected using Idwal ID to get the most benefit? So possibly one for you, George.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, as a minimum, I think once a year now. But what we tend to see is that owners will start to look at the ships which are grading below average. Maybe they will inspect twice a year. Each owner has their different view on it. To be clear, we can advise as part of the sort of account management process that we can flag, look, it might be time to re-inspect this ship, etc. But generally, we tend to talk about focusing on once a year. Once we've got the revolving data set, that also allows us to look at trending performance. And for that, you need an element of regularity of the inspections. So that is something that's very important as time goes on. Yeah, at the end of the day, this is about consistency on our side, standardized, structured approach. And on the client side, obviously, it helps if they can see a history of a ship. You can click on the ship and you can go back and see, okay, at regular intervals, this is how the ship has performed.
Okay, thank you. And we have, can multiple users from our company access the platform? And is it possible to set different permission levels? Amanda?
Yes to both. So yeah, we can set up as many users as is necessary, and all modules can be controlled at either a user or organization level. So by modules, I mean the different bits of the platform that George walked everyone through, such as benchmarking, defects, etc. And in addition to that, we have a restricted view for managers or third parties, I guess, where they only have access to information defects that have been shared with them and not the rest of the benchmarking information. So yes, we can.
Okay, great, thanks. I think you covered this a little bit before, George, but how does Idwal ID help us prepare for port state control inspection? So maybe if you could just reiterate that again.
No, that's all, and there's a bit more to add actually. So there's two aspects. There's one that very soon Idwal ID will be saying if your ship is at high risk of a port state control inspection, which helps. The other thing is actually to improve port state control inspection performance or flag state inspection, is the fact that we have mapped our checklist to the MOU checklist. What that means is that if we find a deficiency on engine room cleanliness, for example, it will automatically flag that under the Paris MOU, that is code 09232 or something like that, I think it is. We're not talking about the action codes, code 17, etc., but we will give you the severity of the defect and which element of the MOU checklist, Paris and Tokyo, for example, it correlates to. So if you do the inspection, you can very quickly see, here are my defects, here are the ones which relate to port state control potential deficiencies or detentions. So it almost becomes like a pre-PSC inspection in addition to all of the data set as well behind it. So it will improve in that side. We have done some data analytics looking at ships in the Idwal ID platform and port state control performance. And the good news, I guess, there is that we see an improving trend in port state control performance. We need probably a few more months before we can really publish that information so that we've got the continuity of the data, but we're starting to really notice that actually it is improving port state control performance for the assets as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I think we've just got time for one more question, maybe, to Amanda, if that's okay. So how can AI and machine learning technologies be used to enhance Idwal ID?
Good question. It's a big question. And I mean, firstly, I'm obviously keen to say that you can't replace boots on deck. And I'm definitely not an expert in machine learning and AI, but thankfully we have a great team of data scientists who are here at Idwal. So we're already using machine learning to predict vessel condition. George touched on that earlier. And this is thanks to the data team and the large set of structured data we built up over doing years of Idwal inspections. I mean, and that is a great indicator. It doesn't replace the need for actual inspections, but certainly can help people prioritize, where to focus their resources. Because not everybody can be on every ship all of the time, not even us. And along with that, so we're exploring other ways AI can help too. And this is in many areas. Report translation is a great one. Also analyzing images, analyzing other unstructured data that we get, and with the view to detecting problems, spotting trends, highlighting recurring issues, and ultimately leading towards preventative maintenance plans. Most of these we're already looking at, experimenting with, and others are on the horizon.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay,
sorry, Sue,
yeah.
just one thing very quickly to add on top of Amanda, that what we're also doing is, this is my window into AI, which is quite limited, but we're looking at what we're calling a sort of impact score. So we look at the severity of the question that we're asking towards the Idwal grade or a subgrade, and then we talk about the performance. So if that question scores a 2 out of 10 and is very important, it's the highest, most important question related to the grade on that inspection, for example. We can then aggregate that across a fleet of, let's say, 10 ships, and we can say, right, if you look at all of those ships, which are the most important questions? And we did a data exercise recently which actually flagged up quite incredibly that between an owner who had 2 separate fleets, that one of the fleets had an issue with critical spares. And this was AI doing this in the background. And it was really interesting that effectively it gave this output. And by the end, there was nowhere actually to hide from the data, that it wasn't just because by coincidence 6 of the ships had used all of their used critical spares. It was a fact that actually the person in charge of those assets, let's say, had been a bit lackadaisical in comparison to their safety management system for critical spares, which I'm sure plenty of, looking at the names on the call, I recognise plenty of technical guys who would definitely agree that that is a concerning trend. And it's amazing how the data could pick that out, because to look at the individual ships, you wouldn't be able to find that. So is that sort of impact score, looking at the severity of the questions, is quite an interesting scenario.
Okay, so I guess we are pretty much done. We ran over a little bit. I think we were aiming for 45 minutes, so gone over a little bit. Any final comments from any of our panelists? It's fine if not, but I think we've covered quite a lot there.
Yeah.
All good. Okay, so I would like to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you to the panelists for their wealth of information and expertise. I hope you agree. We've had a lot of questions, didn't get to them all. So as I mentioned at the start, we'll send a Q&A document to all attendees in the next couple of weeks. If you'd like more immediate information on Idwal ID, please take a look at the dedicated webpage we have, which is idwalmarine.com/ID. Or please contact us directly at enquiries@idwalmarine.com for a more detailed demo and to discuss your specific requirements, perhaps. Thank you all again. Wish you a great rest of the day wherever you are. So on behalf of the panel and myself, I'd like to say goodbye and see you next time. Thank you.
Everyone. Bye.
Thank you.